الذين قالوا لإخوانهم وقعدوا لو أطاعونا ما قتلوا قل فادرءوا عن أنفسكم الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا ما شاء الله بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون فرحين بما آتاهم الله من فضله ويستبشرون بالذين لم يلحقوا بهم من خلفهم ألا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون ما شاء الله يستبشرون بنعمة من الله يستبشرون بنعمة من الله وفضل وأن الله لا يضيع أجر المؤمنين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها وقال الإنسان ما لها يومئذ تحدث أخبارها بأن ربك أوحى لها يومئذ يصدر الناس أشتاتا ليروا أعمالهم فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات اللهم صل على
بار دیگر باواز بلند صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد.
نعرہ تکبیر، نعرہ رسالت، نعرہ حیدری، حسینیت، یزیدیت، باواز بلند صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد. انتہائی جلدی سے ایک مرثیے کے چاند اشعار، اس کے بعد انشاءاللہ آقا صاحب خطاب کی خطاب دیں گے. بعد محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
اللہم صل علی
اس طرف ظلم پہ آمادہ زمانے والے، اس طرف سارے محمد کے گھرانے والے. کون کس کا ہے طرفدار، خدا خیر کرے. کربلا ہو گئی تیار، خدا خیر کرے. یہ قیامت کے ہیں آثار، خدا خیر کرے. کربلا ہو گئی تیار، خدا خیر کرے. روز عاشور ہواؤں سے برستا ہے لہو، روز عاشور ہواؤں سے گئی کسی کی یہ سرکار. کربلا ہو گئی تیار، خدا خیر کرے. یہ تو ممکن ہی نہیں ہے کہ جھکا دیں سر کو، یہ تو ممکن ہی نہیں ہے کہ جھکا دیں سر کو. کیا کریں صاحب کردار، خدا خیر کرے. کیا کریں صاحب کردار، خدا خیر کرے. کربلا ہو گئی تیار، خدا خیر کرے. بھائی جاتے ہیں خدا حافظ و ناصر کہہ کر، بھائی جاتے ہیں خدا حافظ و ناصر کہہ کر. بہن کہتی ہے یہ ہر بار، خدا خیر کرے. بہن کہتی ہے یہ ہر بار، خدا خیر کرے. وہ جو گھوڑے سے گرا ساتھ گرے مشک و علم، وہ جو گھوڑے مشک و علم. نہ علم ہے نہ علمدار، خدا خیر کرے. نہ علم ہے نہ علمدار، خدا خیر کرے. کتنے صدمے ہیں جو سجاد کو سہنا ہے ابھی، کتنے صدمے ہیں جو سجاد کو سہنا ہے ابھی. بیڑیاں ہوتی ہیں تیار خدا خیر کرے، بیڑیاں ہوتی ہیں تیار خدا خیر کرے، آج بھی سینوں میں زندہ ہیں حسین بن علی، آج بھی سینوں میں زندہ ہیں حسین بن علی، سارا عالم ہے عزادار خدا خیر کرے، کربلا ہو گئی تیار خدا خیر کرے، یہ قیامت کے ہیں آثار خدا خیر کرے۔ محمد وآل محمد صلوات محمد بآواز بلند پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات محمد وآل محمد۔ نعرہ تکبیر، نعرہ رسالت، نعرہ حیدری، حسینیت، یزیدیت، پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات محمد وآل محمد۔ مومنین، اب آپ کے سامنے میں درخواست کروں گا آغا محسن جعفری صاحب سے کہ وہ تشریف لیں اور آج کی مجلس اعزا سے خطاب فرمائیں۔ اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔
Let us begin tonight with a Fatiha for all of the Shuhada, for all of the rightful scholars that have passed away, for all of the marhumeen of everyone in this gathering, and for all those who do not have anyone to recite the Fatiha for them. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. For the hastening of the reappearance of our beloved Imam, please recite aloud salawat. So that we may be among his true companions, his true followers, and his true lovers, please recite the second one louder. And as an invitation to the beloved Imam of our time and the Shuhada to this gathering of ours, please recite the third one the loudest. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا شفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين المنتجبين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. قال سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذ سنته ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض صدق الله العلي العظيم. Please recite another salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Yesterday in the discussion that we were having, we spoke about how Islam is alive, but we also pointed towards an Islam that is only there and present apparent, but in reality it's equivalent to the apparent body that may lie in front of us, but it's dead. And we said that there is an Islam that Allah and the Prophet call towards, which is not only alive, but it also gives life. But unfortunately, what tends to happen is the way Islam is presented to us, we see the parts and those parts are explained to us. However, we don't have life. And that is where we get stuck. That we were going to cover during the series, and what we understand the concepts that we may have heard before, but in a manner that you see they are alive, and not only are they alive, you will see how they give life as well. The first topic that we want to discuss, which forms the foundation of our religion, everything goes back to this, is Tawheed. Something that we speak about, something we hear quite often. For all of the kids who have been to madrasa, it's definitely one of the chapters in your book. And for many, they go decades listening to talks about Tawheed. However, what you find is at the end of it, the Tawheed that is being presented stays within the hearts, it stays within the minds, but does not manifest itself in the day-to-day lives of these individuals. There are two ways to discuss Tawheed. There are two ways to discuss Nabuwah. There are two ways to discuss Wilaya and all other concepts that we come across. To explain what these two ways are, there's a beautiful example given by Sayyid al-Qaid, in which he says, imagine that there are two friends who are on a journey. For the sake of the land that we live in, I will use cities that are in the UK. There are two friends who are going between London and Birmingham. And on the way, they see that either side of the road, there are these lands. And they have a discussion. They start talking about whether these lands are fertile or not, whether we can actually grow something in these lands or not. One of them brings their proofs and reasons, the other one counters it and brings their proofs and reasons. It may even get heated. They may even decide to sit slightly further away from each other because of these discussions that are happening. Ultimately, did either of them have the intention to stop the car and plant something on those fields? What is the point of this discussion that they're having? Does it have any effect on this journey that they are on? Very important question to ask. In contrast, imagine they have a discussion in which one says, hang on, we're supposed to be going to Birmingham. Is this the right way? Were we not supposed to take that exit? As soon as this discussion comes up, there's an effect on the journey. He may slow down a bit to make sure he sees the next signboard that comes, to make sure they may even stop, because the further they go without making sure it's in the right direction, the further they may be away from where they're trying to get to. This type of discussion has an effect on the journey that they are on. The first type of discussion is an example of those theological discussions we may be having, which will not affect this journey that we are on at all. And we gave an example of this yesterday. Does the final messenger have a shadow or not? Can he see behind himself or not? Let's say you answer this question, how is that going to affect the journey that you are on? Are you supposed to be of less service to him because he has a shadow? Are you supposed to be of more service to him because he can see behind himself? I remember in front of me, a person asked a sheikh a question in which he said, that if we were on Mars, which way would we face when we want to pray? Now, there's two things the Shaykh could have done. He either tries to answer this question, or he poses a question which is much more important. What was the question that he gave in response? How does this affect you in any way? So when we have our theological discussions, that is the exact question that we need to ask us. Even when the question that is being discussed is as important as, does God exist? Is there one or two? What are the names of Allah and what do they mean? These are important discussions, but before you get into those discussions, it is so important to ask the question, why is this important? Let's say today I believe there is a God. How is this going to affect my life? These questions need to be asked. Before I speak to the adults over here, I'm speaking to the children. When you go to your next madrasa class, no matter what the discussion is, ask, how is this affecting me in my day-to-day life? Let's say the lesson is about proving how Amir al-Mu'mineen is the rightful successor. Ask the question, how does this affect my life? Let's say he's not. How does that affect my life? It is so important that we approach religion in this manner. Otherwise, we will keep on living our life thinking we are getting to what religion wants us to get to, but we will be way off the mark. We will be way off the mark. We'll be having discussions. It will have no effect on understanding the principles and guidelines of this journey. That is what matters. On the day of judgment, one of our scholars says, in reality, all questions come down to two. What was your relationship with the wali of your time? And what was your relationship with others who were under the wilaya of that wali? That's it. Everything else is secondary. A valid question to ask over here is, how does the Quran speak about Tawheed? Very valid question to ask. How does the Quran speak about Tawheed? Is it introducing us to a dry concept, a dry theory which is full of premises and conclusions, or is it introducing us to a Tawheed which, as I said, gives life, is living and gives life? We usually translate Tawheed to what? It's a question. What do we usually translate the word Tawheed to?
Oneness. Oneness of God.
Oneness of God, or monotheism, for example, right? We will, by the end of this, hopefully, we will try to understand whether that's the correct translation of Tawheed or not. SubhanAllah, that's how scary this discussion is, that potentially even how we translate Tawheed as may be wrong. May be presenting to us a Tawheed which is not alive. We mentioned Ayatul Kursi at the beginning. Yesterday, if you remember, may have been the day before, we mentioned the virtues of Ayatul Kursi. And one of the things that we were pointing towards was the principle, if you see anything in religion for which there is a lot of reward which is incalculable, then understand Allah is trying to use that thing to get you to something very important. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through that list of the fada'il of Ayatul Kursi, but remember those, keep those in mind. What is it pointing us towards? Ayatul Kursi summarizes for us Tawheed. It summarizes for us Tawheed. How does Allah Himself introduce Himself in the Quran? Ayatul Kursi. Allah Who is he? La ilaha illahu. Allah introduces himself by the negation of everything else. None are worthy of worship except him. Allah defines himself by the negation of everything else. Keep this in mind. Going towards Allah is not possible without the negation of other than Allah. We have to understand this point. If you look at it from the spiritual perspective, which I have no right to speak about, the scholars will tell you better. A way to envisage this is before you go towards drinking pure water from a cup, you need to make sure that that cup is tahir. So you have to get rid of the impurities and then you can go towards purity. How can you go towards Allah when you have not detached yourself from other than Allah first? Even in our proclamation of Tawheed, what do we say? Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I bear witness there is none worthy of worship except for Allah. La ilaha illallah. That statement starts with the negation of other than Allah. There is a very scary narration, if I'm not mistaken, by our beloved Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, in which he says, if someone takes La ilah by itself, or they take ilallah by themselves, both of these individuals have committed shirk. Both have committed shirk. Why? Because Tawheed is both of these together. Just remember, what we said is the translation of Tawheed. Oneness. Or monotheism. What is the Quran saying? How does the Quran introduce Allah? The negation of the non-divine, going towards the divine. What does the Imam say? It is shirk if you take just the negation, or if you take just Allah. Is our translation of Tawheed not just focusing on Allah? Where is the negation? Something to think about. Something to think about. Please recite salawat. So how important is this negation of other than Allah? How important is this? Again, we understand the importance of this from Ayatul Kursi itself. Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayy al-qayyum. So after introducing himself with the negation of everything else, he brings two very lofty names, Al-Hayy and Al-Qayyum. The ever-living, which is again an incorrect translation. Technically, it's life, the life, and the sustainer. Very powerful characteristics of Allah. What does he say straight after these very lofty and powerful characteristics? لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. So Allah says Al-Hayy and Al-Qayyum. Then after that he tells us what? He is one who does not get drowsy or sleeps. He is Al-Hayy and Al-Qayyum. Such powerful names. Why does he need to bring about something which is a lowly characteristic of humans, of animals, and says Allah does not do this? The Mufassirin makes such an important point. The reason why Allah has brought this right next to such lofty names is to show you the importance of the negation of the non-divine. It is so important to negate the non-divine. It is so important to expose the problems and weaknesses in the non-divine that I will bring
my criticism of the non-divine right next to Al-Hayy and Al-Qayyum. Ayatul Kursi itself tells us the importance of the negation. Why is Ayatul Kursi Tawheed summarized? Because the rest of the verse, Allah is showing you not just who He is, but also what others aren't. Tawheed is both of these things together. For example, Lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. To Him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. Meaning what? There's no space for anything belonging to anyone else. Man dhal ladhi yashfa'u indahu illa bi'idhnih. Who is it that may intercede with Him except with His permission? Even something as lofty, as virtuous as having the ability. Others, Allah is saying even those people who can do this, they can do this because I give them the permission to do this. The line is being made clear. There is Allah and there's everything else. يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ. He knows what is before them and what is behind. Meaning what? They do not know. He is the one who knows. وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. And they do not comprehend anything of His knowledge except what He wishes. So even if they know, it's because He has allowed them to know. Making it clear. There is Allah, there is everything else. Making it clear that you have to negate other than Allah to get to Him. وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلَا يُؤُودُهُ حِفْظُهُمَا. His seat embraces the heavens and the earth. Think about everything Allah has said about Himself so far. Starting with Al-Hayy and Al-Qayyum, and still over here He says, and He is not tired by their preservation. Why? To point us towards everything that is not Allah, that becomes tired and wearied by trying to preserve something. Look at the importance of the negation of the non-divine. Two very, very clear lines are made. There is Allah and there is everything else. Another reason why it is important to speak about other than Allah, the weaknesses that exist in them, the negation of them. There's a narration from our dear beloved Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Someone asked him, why is it that Banu Umayyah were able to take away the rights of the Ahlul Bayt? This response, brothers and sisters, should make us very interested in Tawheed if we were not interested already. How is it that Banu Umayyah were able to take away your rights? What does the Imam reply? Indeed, Banu Umayyah allowed the people to learn about Iman, but they did not allow the people to learn about shirk. So that when they imposed shirk upon them, they would not recognize it. If you do not speak about the weaknesses and flaws and problems that exist in the non-divine, if you are not negating the non-divine, then shaitan will impose the non-divine upon you and you will have no clue what's happened. You will have your mosques, you will have your processions, you will be like, I can do Azadari, and you'll be happy. You won't even know. You won't even know that all of this is happening not in the service of Allah and Sayyid al-Shuhada and the Imam of our time, but it is happening by the permission of, and therefore in the help of other than Allah. Remember, at the time of Harun, the person who was responsible for the shahada and the oppression of our Imam, there were people who would come. And we're going to speak about this more when we touch the topic of Basira. There were people who would come and he would say, recite me something about the Prophet. And they would tell him about the teachings of the Prophet. They would tell him about the fada'il of the Prophet. And what would he do? He would give them bags of gold and say, Subhanallah, go and build madrasas. Go and teach more people. The same Harun that was responsible for the oppression upon the Ahlul Bayt. What good is that madrasa and those teachings if it is in the service of the Dawud? The negation of the non-divine is so important. Understanding the weaknesses and flaws in the non-divine, so unbelievably important. What are the practical implications of realizing that there are only two lines? There is Allah and there's everything else. When you realize this, you will know that Fir'aun, no matter how much he tries to introduce himself as God, the greatest emperors of Rome, no matter how many statues they build and they want people to worship them, or the so-called greatest superpower, or the fourth strongest army in West Asia, no matter who comes, if you realize there's only two lines, Allah and everything else, then at the end of the day, all the tyrants, the kings, their castles, their weapon, their money, it's under the dominion of Allah. It is under the dominion of Allah. There's a beautiful quote from our beloved Shaheed Sayyid, who says that, how can they surround us? How can they surround us? We have the sun, we have the mountains, we have the river, we have the wind. In fact, we see them as being surrounded.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
This is a muwahhid, someone who sees the dominion of Allah. If you understand that there are only two lines, there's Allah and everything else, then you can be Musa and stand in front of Fir'aun, no matter how big his armies, no matter how big his castles.
MashaAllah.
Then you can be an old man who's 86 years old with a tasbih in one hand and stand in front of the biggest so-called superpower with the biggest arsenal of nuclear weapons and so on and so forth. This is what Tawheed can do for you.
Brahe Faste Inqilab Islami Baba de Bulan Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali
Brahe Sheikh Islam Pir Habre Muazzam Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil faraj.
Look at the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Who was in front of them? 30,000? Do you think they saw that? What did they see? These are creations of Allah, all under His dominion. We are with Allah. There was a Yemeni who was being interviewed, and he said that when you see that the US is against you, that the UK is against you, that the Saudis are against you, that Israel is against you, and you still come out victorious, understand that Allah is with you.
MashaAllah.
There is Allah, and then there is everything else. These tyrants, right, they've always tried throughout history to create more than two lines. So there's Allah and everything else, and they've tried to create a third line. There's Allah, there's us, and there's everything else. It is such an important part of their objective to do this, right? Let's not say tyrants and kings and presidents and prime. Shaitan. Shaitan wants to make sure that this third line is created. There's Allah, then there's this other line, and then there's everyone else. Why? So that these tyrants could say, no, we're different. Right? We're different. We're supposed to be ruling over you. You are supposed to be ruled. Our lineage is different. We create noble individuals. That's who we are. And you create subservient individuals. That's who you are. It is so important for them to create this second line and then to maintain it. One of the issues with the creation of the second line is, number one, it emboldens these oppressors. They think, yes, we are different. We're meant to be like this. But what does it also do? It makes everyone else subservient. Why? Because they're like, yeah, they are different. This is what we're supposed to do. We are supposed to be subservient. Two very dangerous effects. It emboldens the oppressors, and at the same time, it takes away hope from the oppressed, from the downtrodden. Don't feel sorry for them though. Because Allah on the day of judgment, and in the future nights we'll touch upon this, both those idols, that third line, and those who accepted this third line will be brought together and punished together. Why? Because both of them accepted there's a third line. Both of them went against the system of Allah, which is Allah and everything else. They did not negate other than Allah. Because they did not negate other than Allah, what did they do? Shirk. They committed shirk. Look at how serious this is in the eyes of Allah. Surah Maryam. This language that Allah uses over here is scary. وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَلَدًا. They say the All-Beneficent has taken a son. Now, it doesn't say they insulted Allah. It doesn't say they said something bad. It says that they said he has taken a son. How does Allah respond to this? لَقَدْ جِئْتُمْ شَيْئًا إِدًّا. You have certainly advanced something hideous. How hideous? تَكَادُ السَّمَاوَاتُ يَتَفَطَّرْنَ مِنْهُ وَتَنْشَقُّ الْأَرْضُ وَتَخِرُّ الْجِبَالُ حَدًّا. These are very harsh terms being used. You have certainly advanced something hideous. How hideous? The heavens are about to be rent apart at it. The earth is about to split open, and the mountains are about to collapse into bits. What did they do? What did they do? They just said he had a son. Rahmani walad. Why is all of this about? There is Allah, then there is the Son of Allah, and there is us. It is shirk. You have gone to war against Allah. There is Allah and there is everything else. He is the creator, everything else is the creator. Yes, within the creator there are ranks. They still stay on this side. Allah and everything else. Please recite salawat. Now let's make this slightly uncomfortable. Allahu, who is he? Lahu mulku samawati wal ard. Everything in the heavens and the earth belong to him. Everything. Now when we think about that, maybe we're like, the heavens and the earth, the mountains, the rivers. This includes you. This includes you. What are the practical implications of understanding Tawheed in this manner, that everything belongs to Him? Let me give an example. Let's say I have a 20 dinar note. I give this 20 dinar note to Nadir. And I said to him, and I say to him, I am the owner of this. Take it. It is an amana. Can Nadir Ali use it however he wishes? He can't go off and buy himself a nice lunch, or he can't go and even give it into charity with the intention of qurbatan illallah, right? Not without my permission. I am the owner. If you believe Allah is the owner of you, what right do you have to decide what to do with yourself?
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Your possessions, your wealth, your children, whatever you have, has a Malik, and He has given it to you as an amana. Your life is an amana. You think you can use it how you want? One of the reasons why our fuqaha say suicide is haram is because this life doesn't belong to you. You have to look after this amana the way the Malik has said to you. So can we spend our money however we want? Can we spend our time however we want? Such an important point here.
MashaAllah.
Think about Tawheed as just being proving the existence of God. And now think about Tawheed meaning everything, including my existence, belongs to Him. I better not do anything He does not.
MashaAllah.
Think about the practical implications of that. Please recite the salawat.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. And if you don't believe it's His dominion, He has His way of making you realize. There's a beautiful story. It may not be true, but it makes the point. I have a dear brother in the crowd who knows this story, and I think as soon as I begin saying it, he'll have a smile on his face. There was a king in his castle, and at his gate were two beggars. And one of the beggars used to praise the king and recite poetry for him, and when people would come by, they would give him a lot of money. And there would be the other beggar. What would he do? Whenever anyone would walk past him, he would say, the king is a donkey, Allah will fix everything. Naturally, he would get less money. But he kept at it. Days, weeks, months, he would stay there and he would say the same thing, regardless of what he saw in front of him. The king got upset. So I need to teach him a lesson. What does he say? He says to one of his ministers, take this chicken and inside the chicken put this diamond and give it to the beggar who says, give it to the beggar who praises you, who says good things about you. So they're like, okay, fine. Now the vizier, he goes there to that beggar, and he sees that in front of the beggar there's already a plate full of food, because he obviously praises all the ministers and stuff, so someone else had brought him a gift as well. And he says to him, this is from the king. And he says, oh, I've already eaten, like I'm full. And he's like, yeah, but the king sent you this, like you can't refuse it. Otherwise I'm going to go back and tell him.
He said, okay, fine, put it here, I'll figure something out. And then he looks across to the other beggar, and what does the beggar say? He says, the king is a donkey, Allah fixes everything. So this beggar says, look, I've been given this, I've already eaten, how much money have you collected today? And he says, I've collected 10 coins. He said, okay, look, give me these 10 coins, I'll give you this chicken. And he says, no, but remember, the king is a donkey, Allah fixes everything. And he says, okay, I'll take it for 2 dinars, like 2 coins. And he says, no, the king is a donkey, Allah fixes everything. And this guy is just like, okay, do you know what, just have it for free. So this other beggar, he starts eating. Naturally, he finds a diamond. He puts it in his pocket, finishes the meal, and after days, weeks, months of being there, he packs up his stuff and he gets ready to go. The other beggar says, where are you going? And he's like, don't worry, friend, we won't meet each other again. Just remember that the king is a donkey and Allah fixes everything. So he left. Now, the vizier went and told the king, your trick worked. We got rid of him. He's like, really? I didn't think it would be that easy. So the king went to the other beggar and asked him, like, so how was the chicken and why are you still begging? And he was like, he told him the story, well, this is what happened. And as soon as the king heard what had happened, what did he do? He takes off his crown, he takes off his robe, sits opposite the beggar, and starts saying, the king is a donkey, Allah fixes everything.
MashaAllah.
So Allah has His way of showing you the next. Subhanallah, we've seen examples of this regularly occurring now. We need to personify this story, another story. And this really brings the story, the fact that we need to bring Tawheed into our actions right to the forefront. There was a messenger sent by Muslims to Persia, before Persia was conquered. And this messenger was supposed to invite the Persian king to Islam. So he goes there, all by himself. Now the Persians at that time were known for flaunting their wealth and flaunting their power. They would always have these soldiers lined up with expensive armor. They would have their massive palaces. Even when the king wanted to travel from one place to another, his throne was lifted by slaves and they would carry him. Like, they were known for this extravagance and show of wealth and power. One lone Muslim went with a message to call them to Islam. Now he gets there to the castle and the guards stop him. They're like, what do you want? He's like, I have a message for the king. And they say, okay, who are you? Do you know who the king is? Go away. And he's like, no, I'm not going to go. I have a message for the king. And they say, okay, give us this message. And he says, who are you? This message is for the king. I'm not going to give it to anyone else. Then there's a fight between them. They're arguing and pushing and shoving, and the viziers that were inside hear this. And they go out and say, what's happening? They say, this crazy person is here. He says he has a message for the king, and he's refusing to give it to us. They're like, take him to the king. So they arrest him and take him to the king. And the king says, what's happening? And they say, this person has a message. He's refusing to give it to us. He has a message for you. And the king says to his guards, okay, take the message from him and give it to me. And he's like, no, I'm not going to give it to any of these guys. I'm going to give it to you. The king has had enough. He's like, okay, let him go. Let him give the message to me. So this Muslim, he comes and he stands at the bottom of the stairs. So there's a stairs that go up to a platform where the throne is. He stands at the bottom of the stairs, takes out the message and sticks his hand out and says, here, this is your message. Obviously, that king gets annoyed. And he says, "Who are you? Do you know where you're standing? Forget the letter. What do you want?" And he says, "We have come to take people away from the servitude of servants to the servitude of Allah." Pause. His words were not important. The letter he had in his hand was not important. Do you know what was important? From the get-go, his actions rejected the Tawhid. He refused to accept their authority. He refused. Who are you that I have to walk up these stairs? Who are these gods of yours that I have to give the message to them? You are nothing but a servant of Allah, and I will treat you as such. The embodiment of Tawheed. Now imagine a community in which Tawheed is alive. They will refuse to bow down to anyone. They will refuse to bow down to anyone. Understand what this means. Doesn't matter whether you're living in Darul Kufr or Darul Islam or any of this. Position as a Muslim is what? Tawheed. The negation of the non-divine going towards the divine. The negation of the non-divine, what does that mean? Practically, what does that mean? That means whatever non-divine system exists, your primary position is to do nothing to legitimize it. They have their education system. Yet we happily send our children to it without being concerned, or whether primarily as a Muslim I'm even allowed to do this or not. They have their financial system. Within it, I act without being worried about, does this affect my Tawheed or not? They have their political system. We go and vote without thinking about whether this affects my Tawheed or not. I'm not saying you can't do any of these things, by the way. What I'm saying is there's a difference when you understand primarily as a Muslim, I negate these systems, which means this individual, if he has to participate in these systems, he understands it's out of necessity. If he understands it's out of necessity, he will be uneasy doing it. If he is uneasy doing it, he will be striving to try and get out of that situation. Then you will have the motivation to open your own schools. Then you will have the motivation to have your own circles which can gather money for individuals who need loans rather than dealing with interest. Then you will have your own centers which are governed by your own rules. You'll have the motivation to create these spaces. It's a scary thing to say, but if your motivation not to send your children to school is because they are teaching them things which they should not be teaching kids, let alone Muslims, this motivation is weak. It's not going to push you to make your own schools. In fact, when they see that this is making you make your own schools, do you know what they will do? Shaitan will come to them and say, the grip of your wilaya is loosening on them. Let them not go to these lessons. Why? Because we would rather have them under our dominion than them creating spaces which are linked and attached to the mu'mineen, to Allah. It's a weak motivation not to send your kids to certain schools because they have music or because of the subjects that they are forcing them to learn and stuff. Do you know what's a stronger motivation? Tawheed. We are Muslims primarily, we reject non-divine systems. Therefore, right now, out of necessity, I'm sending my children there. But whilst that's happening, I will be uneasy, and that uneasiness will motivate me to create my own school. That motivation is so much stronger. So much stronger. Why? Because it's not a reaction. You're doing it because of your core principle and belief. This is Tawheed. I repeat, it's not proving the existence of God and that's it. It's not God is not one. I mean, God is one and not two, and that's it. This is Tawheed. The rejection of the non-divine going towards the divine. La ilaha illallah. As soon as the Prophet made this statement, it had two immediate effects. One, on the oppressors and the idols, it worried them. And two, on those who are being oppressed, they support. What is that not the reason why they came to him and said that you can believe in your God, let us believe in our gods? Why? These are so important, brothers and sisters. Please recite salawat. There's a moment during the journey of Sayyid al-Shuhada where you can see this Tawheed very much alive. When the famous poet came to him, Sayyid al-Shuhada asked him, what is the situation of Kufa? And his reply was, what did the Imam say? Before giving his reply, he began moving his horse. What does the Imam reply as his horse starts moving? You have spoken truly. The affair belongs to God. God does what He wills, and every day our Lord has a new decree. So if the decree descends in the way that we desire, then we praise Allah for His bounties. He is the one who aids us to fulfill gratitude. But if destiny comes in a way different from our hopes, and what is decreed is otherwise, then the one whose intention and aim is truth and justice, and whose inward and outward life is adorned with piety and human values, has not strayed from the highway of truth and virtue. Why did he move his horse before he said this? To show that for a muwahhid, doesn't matter. Why? This is all under the dominion of Allah. Tonight we want to remember the one who made the journey from shirk to tawheed. The story of Janab Hur. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Azizan Muhtaram, करबला में जब आप मुख्तलिफ अशख़ास को देखें, नज़र आता है कि करबला से सबके ऊपर हुज्जत तमाम हो जाती है। 13 साल के कासिम को देखें तो बच्चों के लिए हुज्जत तमाम, 18 साल के जवान को देखें तो जवानों के लिए हुज्जत तमाम, हबीब इब्ने मज़ाहिर को देखें तो बड़ों के लिए हुज्जत तमाम, ज़ुहैर और जॉन जैसे तस्किया शुदा और पाक इंसानों को देखें तो उनके लिए हुज्जत तमाम, ऐसे लोगों के लिए हुज्जत तमाम। लेकिन करबला में एक ऐसी शख्सियत भी थी जिन्होंने गुनहगारों के लिए और ख़ताकारों के लिए भी हुज्जत तमाम कर दी। आज की मजलिस मुझ जैसे गुनहगारों के लिए बहुत बहुत ज़रूरी है। आज उन सब के लिए ये मजलिस ज़रूरी है जिनके ऊपर गुनाहों की जंजीरें लगी हुई हैं और वो आज़ाद होना चाहते हैं। अजीज़ों, हुर के जो गुनाह थे वो छोटे नहीं थे। जब कारवाने हुसैन सहरा में चल रहा था, کسی نے دیکھا دور سے ایسا لگ رہا ہے کہ کوفے کے نخلستان نظر آ رہے. جب اور توجہ کے ساتھ دیکھا تو سمجھ میں آیا کہ ایک لشکر آ رہا ہے. ایسی رفتار تھی اس لشکر کی اور ایسے نیزوں کو پکڑا ہوا تھا جیسے جنگ میں وارد ہو چکے. سوچیں ان بچوں کا کیا حال ہوئے گا جب ان گھوڑوں کے چلنے کی آواز آئی ہوئی. حر کا لشکر سامنے آیا امام کے. امام نے پوچھا ہمارے ساتھ ہو یا ہمارے خلاف. حر کے گناہ دیکھیں. کیا کہا حر نے جواب میں؟ آپ کے خلاف. مجھے دستور دیا گیا ہے کہ آپ کے اوپر سختی اختیار کریں. آپ کو اجازت نہیں ہے کسی ایسی جگہ رکیں جدھر سایہ ہو. آپ اس جگہ کے پاس نہیں جا سکتے جدھر پانی ہو. آپ کو صرف اجازت ہے صحرا میں حرکت کرنے کی. مولا جواب کہتے ہیں حر نماز کا وقت ہے. میں اپنی نماز پڑھتا ہوں, تم جا کے اپنی نماز پڑھو. حر نے کہا ہم آپ کے پیچھے ہی نماز پڑھیں گے. کس نیت سے کہا یہ نہیں پتا, لیکن یہ پہلی وہ جگہ ہے کے اندر. اس کے بعد مولا حسین ایک طرف جانے لگے. حر کا دوسرا گناہ, ایک دم سے حر نے ان کے گھوڑے کی لگام کو پکڑا اور کہا آپ اس طرف نہیں جا سکتے. کس میں یہ ہمت کہ وقت کے امام کو ایسے روکے. اس حرکت پہ امام نے حر کی طرف دیکھا اور کہا اے حر, تیری ماں تیرے اعضاء میں روئے. عرب فرہنگ میں کوئی معمولی بات نہیں ہے کہ کسی کا ماں کا ایسے تذکرہ ہو. جیسے ہی یہ سنا ایسا لگا کہ حر نے چاہا کچھ کہنا, لیکن ایک دم سے حر نیچے دیکھتے ہیں اور پھر جواب میں کہتے ہیں کہ خدا کی قسم اگر پورے عرب میں سیدۃ نساء العالمین ہے, گناہوں کے باوجود ایک اتنا بڑا عمل حر کے نام اعمال میں لکھا گیا. کون سا عمل؟ احترام مادر حسین. کوئی چھوٹی بات نہیں ہے. حر نے امام کے قافلے کو صحرا میں روکا. سرزمین کربلا پہنچے. یزید کی فوجیں جمع ہونے لگی, خیمے لگنے لگے. اس طرف کاروان حسینی نے اپنے خیمے لگائے. حر کے اندر ایک عجیب کیفیت بننے لگی. اس کو امید تھی کہ شاید کچھ کام زیادہ خراب نہ ہو, مذاکرات ہوں, صلح ہو اور معاملہ حل ہو جائے. 7 محرم آئی, دستور آیا کہ خیموں کے اوپر پانی کی پابندی لگائی. حر گھبرانے لگا. 8 محرم آئی, 9 محرم. حر کی ظاہری حالت کچھ خراب ہونے لگی. باطن میں حر کے ایک جنگ عظیم چل رہی تھی. ایک خیمے یزید سے ہنسنے, مسکرانے, غنا. دوسری طرف خیمے حسینی سے قرآن, مناجات. ایک طرف اس نے دیکھا اسراف کے ساتھ پانی پیا جا رہا ہے. جو جانور گرمی کی وجہ سے پریشان ہیں ان کے اوپر پانی ڈالا جا رہا ہے. اور دوسری طرف اولاد نبی, بچوں کی چلانے کی آوازیں, العطش العطش. ایک ایسا موقع آیا, حر واپس آ رہے تھے اپنے خیمے میں اور ان کا پورا بدن لرزنے لگا. کسی نے ان سے کہا حر اگر کوئی مجھ سے پوچھے کہ عرب میں سب سے بہادر سپہ سالار کون ہے؟ میں کہتا حر. اور جنگ سے پہلے تمہاری یہ حالت. حر کہتے ہیں میں اپنے آپ کو جنت اور جہنم کے بیچ میں دیکھ رہا ہوں. حر آسمان کی طرف نگاہ کرتے ہیں, خدا کو خطاب کرتے ہیں, کہتے ہیں میرے پاس آپ کے سوا کوئی نہیں رہا. میں نے آپ کے چاہنے والوں کو اذیت دی, میں نے ان کے بچوں کو ڈرایا. آقا مجتبیٰ تہرانی کہتے ہیں کہ حر عاشور کے دن گھوڑے پہ گئے خیمہ حسینی کی طرف, اور مولا حسین کے قدموں پہ اپنے آپ کو گرا دیا. اور صرف گرایا نہیں, انہوں نے اپنے سر کو کربلا کی جلتی ہوئی زمین پہ رکھ دیا. شرمندگی کے باعث حر اپنا سر اوپر نہیں کر پا رہے تھے, اور انہوں نے مولا سے پوچھا میری توبہ کی قبولیت کے لیے کوئی امید ہے آقا؟ بڑا کرم ہے مولا حسین کا. انہوں نے کہا اپنا سر اٹھاؤ, خدا نے تم کو معاف کر. انہوں نے یہ یاد نہیں دلایا کہ تمہاری ان حرکتوں کی وجہ سے کیا کیا ہو چکا ہے. یہ العطش کی آوازیں جو ہیں وہ تمہاری وجہ سے. مولا نے اس کو اٹھایا اور گلے لگایا. مولا کو احساس ہوا کہ یہ جو العطش کی آوازیں ہیں یہ بالکل ایسے حر کے لیے ہیں جیسے کوئی تازیانے مار رہا. مولا کو گوارا نہیں ہوا کہ حر کو اس سے زیادہ کوئی اذیت ملے. فوراً اجازت دی میدان میں جانے کی. خوب لڑے. ایک ایسا موقع آیا جب حر کو دشمنان خدا نے گرایا اور شہادت نزدیک ہوئی. مقتل میں لکھا ہے کہ حر واحد شخص تھے جب شہادت کے نزدیک تھے انہوں نے مولا حسین کو نہیں بولا. ہو سکتا ہے کہ حر شاید سوچ رہے میں نے اتنی اذیت دی ہے مولا کو, میں نہیں چاہتا ان کو اور اذیت. ان کی آنکھیں بند ہو. ایک دم سے حر کو احساس ہوا کہ کوئی قریب آتا ہے, اور احساس ہوتا ہے کہ ان کے سر کے نیچے ایک ہاتھ گیا. مولا حسین حر کا سر اپنے دامن میں رکھتے ہیں. سوچیں عزیزوں کچھ گھنٹے پہلے حر کہاں تھے اور اب ان کا سر دامن حسین میں. مولا حسین حر سے کیا کہتے ہیں؟ اے حر تم واقعاً حر ہو, جیسے تیری ماں نے تیرا نام رکھا ہے, اس دنیا میں بھی آزاد اور آخرت میں بھی آزاد. لیکن حر کے لیے کوئی تھا سر دامن میں رکھنے کے لیے. ایک ایسا وقت آتا ہے مولا حسین زمین کربلا میں شہادت سے کچھ لمحے پہلے اکیلے پڑے ہوئے. ادھر سے زینب دیکھ رہی ہیں, مولا کی آنکھیں بند. احساس ہوا کہ کسی نے سر کے پیچھے تو ہاتھ نہیں رکھا, لیکن سامنے کسی نے ان کی داڑھی کو پکڑا. ان کو احساس ہوا کہ کوئی سینے پہ سنگینی. اپنی آنکھ کھولی, ادھر سے زینب نے دیکھا, ادھر سے مولا حسین نے دیکھا کہ شمر سینے پہ بیٹھا ہوا ہے. الا لعنت اللہ علی القوم الظالمین, انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون. ماتم حسین.
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین.